So guys, today we have got Lynette on the show. She's a family coach and she is absolutely amazing at what she does, and we're thrilled to have her with us. So Lynette, do you want to just introduce yourselves to our audience and tell us a little bit about you?
Fantastic. Thank you, Charlotte and John. So my name's Lynette Tipper. I'm the founder of Cocoon Coaching Solutions, and I'm a family coach, but essentially I'm a relationship coach. So it's really working with people within the family dynamic and trying to sort of help as and when, so support towards young people and women primarily.
Okay, so Lynette, tell us a little bit more about kind of how you do what you do and why.
Oh, that's a great question. I suppose I became a coach after really sort of becoming a mummy, but also previous to that, I'd worked in HR and recruitment. And as time had gone on, I'd seen really that there was a niche for people entering back into the work world after having a family. And also, once you do have a family, often, you've been out of the loop for a while, it can seem a little bit daunting to get back into that. So I started out working primarily with women, and as time went on, there seemed to be more of a demand for parents actually needing more information. So I developed Cocoon Kids and Teens as well. So yeah, it's exciting working with young people too.
I can imagine. What I like about that is you obviously can draw from your own experience on that, because it's right, isn't it, that you also, when you was transitioning back into the workplace and then decided to set up your own business, that's huge. What gave you that courage to do that?
Do you know what? I'm passionate about what I do and I love to help people. And I think this was essentially, there was also at the time one of my children who is quite a big lad now, but at the time he was around about 3 years of age, and he was sort of struggling with a speech delay. And I think, I noticed that there was quite minimal support out there for mums. So, not only getting back into the workforce is actually difficult, or it was difficult at that point. I found that, often people just need a sounding board. People just need to be able to talk things through. And I think coaching is an excellent guidance for that.
Awesome, man. So obviously, as you know, here what we do, we try to integrate kind of all areas of wellness for the individual, whether it's heart, mind, body, and soul. So from your experience and your kind of take on what you do, how does wellness kind of affect the family dynamic?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so wellness is so important for everybody, right? And I think, a healthy mind, whether it's for, mum, dad, or child or teenagers, no matter what, mind, body, and soul, the connection, holistic approach is so essential now. And I think we're getting to be more aware of just how important it is to actually look after ourselves in every sense. So if we neglect, and I know I speak from experience, sometimes neglecting exercise means that, I can feel that I'm slightly more agitated or I'm not at my peak performance. So, if you're combining sort of like, mind, a body and a soul element to wellness, particularly within the family dynamic, it means that things are slightly more oiled, as in things go a little bit smoother. And I think, parents, it's really great for parents to try their best to show their kids, how to get involved with fitness, to sort of like to show them how it's done, really. Because, if mum and dad are active beings and are eating well and are, practicing self-care, then it becomes second nature.
I agree completely. It's interesting because you've got that classic saying, haven't you, of do as I say, not as I do. But kids don't work that way, do they? Like, I mean, even as adults, we don't work that way. We will buy into that we see doing the things that we want to do, or we'll kind of essentially look up to those people. So what would you say to somebody that is maybe within that family dynamic, but they are not being shown those kind of things, but maybe they're being told to do them, but they're not really leading by example?
Yeah, great question again. Do you know what? There's a rebel in all of us, isn't there? And I think when we're told to do something, there's always a little bit of an element of a kickback. And actually, I believe as time goes on, we discover our own strengths. And if there is, a desire to sort of get involved with exercise, or wanting to sort of like better yourself with regards to food intake, nutrition, go with it. Even if mum and dad or brothers and sisters aren't doing it, doesn't matter. The reality is that we're the captain of our own ships, aren't we? And if we want to get involved with something and we feel the benefits, then we're going to keep doing it. So go for it.
That's exactly pretty much what happened with me. Like, my parents were not gym bunnies. They're not people that really cared too much about health. They took care of us and made sure that we ate okay and stuff, but there was no real lesson there. And I always say, and like they laugh along with me now, that they were probably my worst advertisement for when I was in the fitness industry. Like, and they think that's hilarious, but I find it so interesting though, because a lot of people then struggle to kind of keep changes that they're making from that kind of physical perspective. What would you say from like a mindset and emotional perspective? If you've got somebody, let's say you've got somebody that's maybe 18, 19 years old, maybe they're still living in that home environment, and they know that they need to be thinking better, maybe feeling better, but they're feeling quite suppressed within that environment. How would you advise them maybe to behave or move forward from that situation?
Well, all we can ever really do is live in the now, right? As in, we can't personally. I'm from a relatively fit household, so I was kind of like, my family, my siblings were all sort of like, they broke all the school records. I had hay fever. I was one of the smaller ones, so I have like, I'm 5'2", so I was never a natural runner. My father was like this amazing athlete. Very conscious of how he looked after himself. My mum, on the other hand, wasn't necessarily. However, I'd say all we can ever really do is that, take each step one day at a time and reward ourselves. The brain really, when there's a reward, an incentive for the good behavior, there's a desire to get up and do it again. Whereas if, we're kind of beating ourselves up and maybe comparing ourselves to others and, sort of saying to ourselves, like mentally and emotionally, sort of berating ourselves, there's no motivation or inspiration to change that. In fact, if anything, it's almost like a vacuum spiral down. So it's really important, I think, mindset is everything. Attitude is absolutely everything. And if we can incentivize ourselves to do the best that we can on that day. Even your worst days only have 24 hours. So, the next day is always a fresh start, right? So, cut it off, when the day finishes, sleep well and start again.
Do you think, because we spoke earlier about obviously like parents influencing kids from a wellness perspective, do you think that kids and any age, I'm talking like from being like under 18 to even being like in the adult world but still living within that dynamic, do you think that there is a way that they can communicate in order to influence their parents?
Ooh. Yes, I think nowadays, getting everybody involved, even if it's going for a walk, it's family time, it's quality time. It's essential for just, good spiritual bonding and reconnecting with one another, isn't it? I'm not sure whether I'd get my mum and dad sort of like doing a 10K. I'd love to think that. But, like just inviting them to sort of maybe even partake in whatever it may be, even if it's a healthy eating for a week, a challenge or whatever it may be. It's fun to sort of make things, to do things as a unit, to do new things, new activities as well as a unit. It's spending time together, which is, essentially the most important thing, I think.
Awesome.
Definitely. I would kind of very similar to Charlotte, where my family are not health related fitness freaks or anything like that. So I grew up in an environment where there wasn't lots of healthy eating or training or gym or movement or anything, exercise, anything like that. And I kind of went the opposite of my family, as I went into kind of the health and fitness industry. And when going into that at a young age, and what I found with a lot of my younger clientele was that same thing, is they enjoyed what they were the benefits they were getting from it, and they wanted their family to get involved in it. But they didn't know, again, they were struggling to get them involved. They didn't really know how. And I used to be the same. I remember at one point I used to actually train my dad, which lasted for a couple of sessions, and he never came back again. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, you want to get your parents involved, you want to get your family involved, like you said, to have that family time. And I think the biggest thing that you say is invite them to do it, and don't force it upon them. And I think that's where I went wrong initially in those early times, where I kept trying to, like, use all the science. So you need to do this because something's gonna happen to you, and you would kind of use scare tactics to try and force them to be healthy and do stuff, and it just really didn't work.
It's essential, I think, to have that layer of acceptance as well. Because if you've really got, and not just parents, but a whole family dynamic. So if you've got brothers and sisters, even friends, to be fair, that are surrounded by you, and you're like like ready to grow and ready to expand, whether that's physically, whether that's emotionally, whatever, whether that's going after your dreams, whatever it is, I think it's essential to have that layer of acceptance that not everybody is going to maybe want to do what you do. How would you suggest that somebody communicates that? Let's say they are, and for want of a better term, say like outgrowing their environment and outgrowing their family, and they just feel like they just don't understand. What advice would you give, knowing what you know now, in how they could communicate and navigate that situation?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think, again, when our families see the benefit, and let's be honest, if someone is working out, if somebody is, with exercise, with physical exercise, there's so many mental health benefits that come with that. You've got increased serotonin levels, when your physique looks amazing, you're often a lot happier, just in general. So you're probably a little bit more open to opportunities and possibilities, which consequently has a knock-on effect on life in general, right? So, for me, wellness is so important. And as you guys said, you're never going to be able to tell someone what to do. I just think essentially that's really tricky ground, because parents always think they know best. Not always the case. So it's really, really important to live as healthy and to be, a role model for your family to a certain extent. And at some point, things will change. And I can honestly say that my mum now, as 73 or 4, maybe, I'm not sure. Sorry, Mum. But I think she's now a gym member. She hasn't been using it for a while, but she, over the Corona period, but she definitely loves going to the gym, and it's gentle exercise for her. She loves walking. She did start yoga for a while as well, because myself and my sister were really into yoga. And we, I think she can see the benefits. I mean, she knows us, and she knows how easily we can be wound up at points. And all of a sudden we're becoming a lot more zen and relaxed. And she's like, whoa, wait a minute, there's something to this. My father, I think, the benefits of exercise, he has like green shots, the wheatgrass shots. Yeah. He sees us doing it, so he wants to do it. There's like this fantastic green powder, that has all the veggies and stuff in it, and it doesn't taste so great, but first thing in the morning, put a little bit of that in, some collagen, mix it up. And he comes, when we're visiting, he comes and says, oh, what are you drinking? Oh, I'll have one of those. So, it's a slow, gradual process, but you've just got to live your life to the best of your own ability, whatever it may be. And slowly but surely, I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, I think, I'm in complete agreement with you there. I think leading by example is the best thing anybody can ever do. And being that role model, not only for others, but for yourself as well, I think is essential. Because you're planting seeds with every action you take, every thought you think, every word you say, you're planting a seed for somebody else. And then who knows, when they're in their 70s, it might come into fruition, like your mum. Like, at some point it will come into fruition, and it's just having that trust in the process that it will happen the way it needs to. And I think if anybody is kind of experiencing that, that's listening to this, and they are maybe feeling like they're outgrowing their environment or people around them, is to still approach those relationships with that love and that care and holding space for them, but also to make sure that they are finding their own tribe at the same time. They are still reaching out to find other people that have got similar interests.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lynette, about the biggest challenges that young people face at the moment? Like, what are you seeing through your coaching practice?
I'm seeing an awful lot of distraction going on, and I see, you know, social media being probably one of the major distractions that I hear about, because sadly, consequently, you know, we're living in a world now where we are able to reach so much information, and actually, is this a good thing? Who knows? I believe there's a lot of stress increasing, solely because, you know, sleep is not, you know, prioritized. So there's a lack of sleep. This consequently means that performance is not at peak, you know, as in they're not being able to, you know, perform to the best of their ability, because, you know, without sleep, without, you know, looking after ourselves properly, you know, we get a bit down on ourselves. We consequently feel that, you know, our emotions change slightly. There's a shift there then with behavior, and before you know it, again, it's like, you know, we're in this vicious cycle. So I'm a big believer in, you know, trying to reduce the amount of social media usage, which is not always easy, because let's be honest, you know, we're all, we're in this age now where likes is a big thing, popularity is a big thing, and sadly, there's a knock-on consequence on our self-esteem. So again, we look for more likes, and it's that, again, that, you know, the constant chasing. So if young people are looking for one thing that they can change tomorrow or today, even, in fact, start today, or always better, you know, putting that phone away. And I think, Charlotte, we had a conversation about this a while ago, and this is actually the advice that you gave to me that I follow through to today. I put my phone by the door of my bedroom, because unfortunately I cannot have it outside the room. I wish I could. I'm trying my best, and it's a work in progress. But so I understand the necessity to have the phone somewhat in the room.
You know you can, right? You know you can if you really wanted to.
True. I'm working. It's a work in progress. And I put it exactly. I put it towards the door, and that way, then, you know, if there is something essential or urgent, or I need to get hold of anyone, or anybody needs to get hold of me, I have to get up out of bed, and, you know, it makes me think twice. Whereas if I have it right beside me, often, you know, if I forget to turn off the light on it, or if I, you know, whatever it may be, it wakes me up, so it disrupts my sleep again. And, you know, sometimes if you can't go to sleep and you're struggling to, you know, get into a nice relaxed state, if you pick your phone up, you're actually putting yourself further back towards the goal of actually relaxing in your room. So yeah, social media, less time on social media.
I agree with you completely. So much time gets wasted on social media, and I think we learned that when we shifted to online business, right? We, you know, you see our page, Alice that see our page, we spend a fair amount of time there, but we have to have those boundaries in place, because it does disrupt everything, and that can be something as simple, like as huge as sleep, but something as simple as just being really truly present. Like, yes. Me and John made a commitment a long while back to not have phones in the bedroom, which was, I think, the conversation we had a while back. And it makes a world of difference, just in terms of our quality time together, in terms of our quality of sleep together. But not only that, is that window in the morning and at night to make sure that phone isn't present. And for me as well, personally, what I've realised is that when I'm working, I have to put my phone somewhere else. Sometimes I'll give it to John. I'm like, John, take my phone away. Take my phone away. I need to get this project done, or I need to really concentrate and be present with what I'm doing. And because it takes so long to get back on track. And interesting that you brought that up when I asked the question about what young people are struggling with, because sometimes they're not even aware that they're struggling with that. So it's really good that you brought that one up. We have a lot of students message us sometimes saying they've got their finals coming up and they're trying to study and they're forcing themselves to stay up late and they're always on their phone, and it's like, well, yeah, exactly, they're messaging me on Instagram, for example, rather than doing what they've set out to do. So it really is becoming a barrier. I find that really interesting that you brought that one up. So anyone listening, keep your phone away.
Yeah, I do think obviously at the moment with the kind of current times we're in, you've got the older school of thinking where the people are still into like hard copy books and paper and stuff like that, who are anti technology, and then you've got obviously the kids who are growing up who are everything's technology, and give it another 20-30 years, that's that technology is only going to get bigger and kind of more, should we say, immersive into everyone's lives, because with the rise of artificial intelligence and augmented reality. So I think as the years go on, trying to get kids to spend less time on technology is going to become impossible, and it's going to be, I think, more important to educate them as they grow up into using technology responsible, and not just scrolling through Facebook and looking at rubbish that is actually giving you adding no value to your life.
Cute cat videos.
Yeah, cute cat videos add value to your life. But it's like, because there's so much good information out there on the internet, people can learn from and actually improve their quality of life. But it's educating the kids growing up to understand how to use that technology more sensibly, isn't it?
Just so I can leverage it.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that's an excellent point. Education is everything. And I actually think the face of education is changing as well. Because, now more and more education is happening online. So we need to start, I think, Charlotte, you mentioned something about boundaries. Boundaries are essential, and it's not having mum and dad or other people enforcing those boundaries. It's actually learning how to find those boundaries for what works for ourselves, and knowing when things feel good, when excuse me, tongue tied there, when things feel good and when things feel not so good. So if your sleep is suffering, or if your work is suffering, or your study is suffering, whatever it may be, it's actually realizing that there is always a way to make things better. It's just essentially finding out what works best for you. And, you're quite right. Things are just going to get more and more advanced. And technology has changed so much in my day. We're really old these days, so that's why. But, I think, it is, we have to educate the younger generation about the importance of patience, the importance of actual sort of like, giving ourselves the self-care and the nurture that we need to actually absorb that information to the best of our ability when we need it, rather than this constant flow of effectively what could be 24/7. I mean, we have access to information all the time. It's almost scary.
And it's overwhelming, right? And it's creating anxiety within a lot of people, and it's that perception. And what I love about what you just said there the most is that you said it's about teaching them what they are feeling when it's good or not so good. So it's not about educating people from the standpoint of your melatonin levels are going to be this, or you've got to go to bed at this time so you can get into this sleep state and stuff like that. I think that's important to have awareness of, for sure. But it's that intuitive nature that people need to start connecting with, because that is always going to be their truth, no matter what changes, whether it's technology changing, whether it's science changing. How they feel and how they perceive things is going to be the one thing that is a constant in their lives, isn't it?
And I think that comes with self-awareness, right? As in, that knowing yourself, knowing what works for you, knowing what doesn't, that comes from being able to give yourself the self-care that you need as and when needed, to opening up what is important to you. How essential is it to have, 100 likes plus or whatever it is, as in, yes, it is important, but actually realizing that sometimes there's more to life, and actually it can be detrimental. It can be detrimental to our self-esteem, our confidence, us, well, we've got to realize what's real and what's not, and as you say, Charlotte, we're the only people effectively at the end of the day, that we can answer. We only answer to ourselves, really, truthfully. We speak our own truth. And if we avoid that, if there's a degree of avoidance, whatever it may be, and I think social media is to a certain extent distraction, right? And I'm guilty of it too. So I'm not blaming anybody, we're all in this together. It's learning how to actually, master that, really.
Yeah, I agree completely, because as much as it can be a distraction, it's also a huge benefit. A lot of people will be listening to this through social media, you know what I mean? So there are so many benefits to it. It's just making sure your attention is being placed in the right place. Lynette, if you was to give somebody one piece of advice to improve their self-awareness so that they didn't have to essentially suffer from the things that we've spoken about, what would you suggest to them?
I would say open your mind to the fact that we are whole human beings. In fact, if anything, there's nothing that needs fixing ever. In fact, we are full of magnificence and strength. And actually, nobody really knows what their strengths are until they find them, right? So it's like, when you're feeling anxious or distressed about any situations, anything coming up, like studying, exams, presentations, whatever it may be, lean into your strengths. Open up your mind to who you actually are. Find out when you work best. Find out, what kind of exercise you need to do to actually feel relaxed again. Find out what foods suit you, what foods don't suit you, as in everybody is different. So it's not one version fits all, and it's really sort of like finding out who you are, what matters, because essentially the mind, body and soul connection, if we can sort of like, draw awareness to that, I think people, if they could tap into that more, then life becomes a whole lot easier.
How would you suggest somebody starts that? Let's say they're not aware of that and they've just listened to you and they're like, whoa, yeah, do you know what? Light bulb moment. There is more to me than just maybe what I'm seeing. There's so much more. How do they then become aware of that? What one thing do you think they could do?
Do you know what? Find out what nourishes your soul. I say, for me, 5 things. I have like a little sort of like, list. Again, Charlotte, I believe this is something that we discussed a while ago. And this is like, the self-care toolbox. Find out what you really enjoy doing. Ask yourself, is that present in your life right now? And if not, why not? And can you bring more of that into life? Because, self-awareness comes with finding out who we are, what we like, what we dislike, and why we kind of, want whatever it may be more or less of in our life. Self-reflection probably is my biggest key that I can recommend for anybody. And it's something that I do both professionally and personally, because, oh my goodness, it's a game changer. Just putting together some questions that might basically get you thinking, and do it at a time where you feel really peaceful, contented and happy, or even at a time where you're just like, okay, I'm not quite myself and I'm not sure why. Just, have a play around with what's going on. Notice what your inner critic is saying. Notice, what that chatter, what's the negative thoughts that are going on? Do they sound like us? Could they be from someone else, as in like our conditioning from our parents or whatever it may be? So really it's, for me, very much a case of, it's important, I think, for everybody, even within the family structure, for parents to sit down and maybe at dinner time, ask a question, like throw out a question, what's something so simple like, what's been your most awesome highlight of the day? Super quick, super simple, and it gets some chat around the table. Again, it's connection. Again, it's like, quality time, but also it's making people think.
I love it. That's perfect. I think that's so good. Like, I'm always talking about reflection. Again, if anybody's listening to me, again, talking about reflection, yeah, it's because it matters. Lynette thinks so too. It must be true, okay? Like, I'm always reflecting. Like, a lot of the time I'm reflecting. But because it's so powerful. And I think the example questions that you've just given there are already a great place for people to start that are listening to this. So thank you for that. It's awesome.
Oh, fabulous. My pleasure.
So, Lynette, over the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life and the life of your family?
That's a great question, John. I think possibly one of the most powerful things that I can ever recommend for anybody, and particularly for my own family, I noticed a massive difference, was something that I call brain dumping. And I always get a slight sort of, that kind of inquisitive look of what does that mean exactly? And effectively, it's journaling. And, it doesn't have to be anything complex, but you start to actually notice over a period of time, if you're journaling, what's working for you, what are the things that have made you happy? So, like 3 little gratitude points, but also potentially what could have gone better? If you had a magic wand, that's what I always say to my children, if you had a magic wand and you waved it and you woke up tomorrow, what would be different? And I think, again, journaling, if you can get your thoughts out, you can have a better night's sleep. I mean, my journaling can also, for younger kids, be drawing. And that's okay too, because it's practice. Yeah? Sorry, what was that, Charlotte?
And for adults.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. So like, whatever it may be, just get the flow going, because that's when the magic happens. And even if you're feeling a bit down, it doesn't matter. Get it down, because you'll also see potentially what your triggers are, what's not working for you, and potentially what you can change. We're creatures of habit, aren't we? So rituals and habits are so important.
I love it. I think that's an awesome one. The magic wand, I think it's fantastic. And obviously the reflection that goes with it, but they're so good because like if you literally do that magic wand every day, imagine the compound effect that has over time. How old are your kids now, Lynette?
7 and 8.
7 and 8. Imagine what they're going to be when they're 16, 17, older than that. That every day is getting better than the one before just because you've implemented something so simple like that. That's huge. And that's the testament to you as a mother, obviously, and your husband. That you've implemented that, and there's no doubt at all that your kids are a true reflection of that. And if other parents are listening,
they
or
have their
anybody,
moments. They certainly have their moments.
All kids have their moments, right? That's not a bad thing. And there's obviously, a mischievous nature to everybody, even you, Lynette, I would imagine. They've got to learn it from somewhere, right? But I think the magic wand is something that I think is very, very powerful and very simple that anybody listening can implement, whether they've got kids or not. I think it's huge for anybody like that.
Sure.
All right. Lynette, so listen, it's been absolutely amazing to have you on. I love picking your brains on all this kind of stuff. Where can people find you?
Oh, please find me on Instagram on Cocoon Coaching Solutions, or Facebook as well. I'm available on Facebook. Again, Cocoon Coaching Solutions, or my website, which is www.cocooncoachingsolutions.com.
Amazing. We'll put all of that info in the notes underneath as well, so everybody will have that so they can find you easily. Is there anything else that you think our listeners might need to hear today?
Interesting. Last golden nugget of wisdom. One of the things that I think every day is a fresh start. And I think I mentioned before, every day has 24 hours. So if it's a cracking day, fabulous. It's going to be the best 24 hours going. And if it's an awful day, fabulous too, because you know what? It's over and there's a fresh start the next day.
I love that. So many people leave things until like the start of next week or next month or next year, I'll do that. But if they're thinking on a daily basis, again, game changing straight away.
Absolutely, step by step. That's all we can do. We can't really do anything more than that. Just do our best to the best of our ability, and anything else, we'll cope with whatever it may be.
Amazing.
Nice.
I love it. Nice last bit nugget there of information.
Definitely. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Lynette. Obviously, you shared so much amazing, valuable information with our listeners. So I'm sure they're going to be very grateful when listening to this.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.